Hey, and thanks for tuning in, my favorite cyber sleuths. Today, we're diving into a compilation of TikToks. Just a heads up, some of these videos might be triggering for some viewers. With that said, let's jump right in.
A tragic story, really young girl. Family and friends of Lisbeth Medina are relieved police arrested a suspect in the case, but are, of course, still mourning the loss of the young teen.
This first video is from SV Films production, and it brings us yet another heartbreaking tale. It tells the story of a family torn apart by tragedy, still grappling with unanswered questions surrounding a tragic murder.
A brutal quadruple murder. 29-year-old Marie Altidore and her two young daughters, Sabrina, 6 weeks old, and 2-year-old Samantha, and Altidore's mother, Teresia Laverne. The four were violently killed. It's one of Miramar's most horrific crimes. Amid the bloody crime scene, police found the children bludgeoned to death, the two adults beaten and shot. Also inside, a message: "I want my 100,000 drug money." But police believe it was a ruse. There was no forced entry to the home. The killer could possibly be someone close to the family. Marie's husband, George Altidore, was visibly distraught in the hours after the murder.
The only name that we've been unable to 100% exclude is George Altidore.
While 25 years have passed, police have not cleared Altidore as a possible suspect. As of today, he's not been named a suspect or charged. Police say new DNA testing results and phone records could be what solves this case.
Next, we have Carrie Paola, and she brings us this compelling video, raising doubts and suspicions. Could this literally be a cover-up? The plea for clarity grows louder as we speak the truth. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.
The police chief of Kotzebue says they will not reopen a case of an indigenous woman that was found dead on a former mayor's property. But wait, she is one of two women that were found dead on this man's property. One is declared a suicide, and both of his sons had been previously accused of domestic violence against these women. Have I got your attention? This is Jennifer Kirk. This is Susu Norton. Both victims of domestic violence, both found dead on the former mayor's property in Kotzebue, Alaska. But today we're talking about Jennifer Kirk because her family, along with some of us content creators, had been speaking out about the fact that this case doesn't make any sense. Initially, back in 2018, when she died and was found, there were signs of strangulation. The man who found the body, Anthony Richards, who's the son of the mayor, had been previously charged with strangling her. He pled guilty to assaulting her, but they closed the case and called it a suicide. And last week they posted a letter on Facebook saying they will not reopen the case. But there's a lot of problems with this because we found contradiction. In an email last fall, the police chief said that they had closed the case a day after her death, and it was closed before they had gotten the final autopsy report. In the new letter, the chief of police is like, oh yeah, we spent like 16 days. We covered this case. Then, in the police report, the length of the rifle is longer than the lengths of Jennifer Kirk's arms. How would she be able to maneuver that? And by the way, women don't shoot themselves in the chest. That's not how we go out. That is a personal anecdote, but it's my professional opinion. They also never tested Anthony Richards, the man who found her and had previously assaulted her, pled guilty to that. They didn't test him for gunshot residue. Not his body, not his clothes. Benson and Stabler would never. Amos Richards, the other son, had pled guilty to assaulting Susu Norton. That was ruled a homicide, but it was never solved. And residents don't believe that it's the only unsolved homicide. This includes the current mayor, who asked questions about the 2016 death of Bessie Ralston, who also died from a gunshot wound to the chest. I have so many questions, and rest assured, this will not be my last video on this.
In this video from Melon BX, we're faced with a troubling realization. This video sheds light on a distressing pattern that appears way too often. It's a sobering reminder. Please remember to check on your family and loved ones regularly.
Looks like two single mattresses, basically. Okay, that infestation. Flies. Is he? Big time.
Okay. Is here and all here? All by here, mate?
Yeah, there's loads of flowers here.
Do you want to get rid of that blanket? Just lift it up
Yeah,
slowly. Don't cause any dust.
Let's go.
And masks.
Walk by Faith 92 brings us this video of a chilling story of sisterhood shattered by jealousy and violence.
Morelli was arrested September 24th in the shooting of her sister, 18-year-old Yaneli, and the death of the 3-week-old baby Celine. Yareli's boyfriend Martin was also arrested for the murder of Yaneli and Celine. At 7:20 a.m., officers were called to the home because they received reports about multiple gunshot sounds coming from their bedroom. The crime scene was traumatic for all personnel, including EMS, detectives, officers, and crime scene technicians. When they arrived, they saw this beautiful young girl right here to the right, Yaneli, dead on scene, including the 3-week-old baby girl to my left, dead on scene. Investigators had an idea of what was going on, but they didn't have enough evidence to make an arrest. Literally, her sister planned her death because she had a baby before her. You're sick. This is Solorio-Rivera, age 22, the sister who killed her younger sister, Yaneli, age 18. And this is Yareli's boyfriend, Martin, age 26, who helped kill his girlfriend's sister and baby.
This next video was created by Makeup by Tasha, but I'm going to go out on a limb here with speculation and say that the maid was actually involved. However, I can't emphasize this, and it's merely an allegation on my part. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Who do you think did this?
In the 1900s in Bavaria, Germany, the group of family lived in this farmhouse called the Hinterkaifeck. The family consisted of husband and wife Andreas and Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and Victoria kids Joseph and Kazilia. The family noticed a lot of strange things going on around the house. Andreas noticed a set of keys that were missing, and also there were footprints in the snow leading from the woods to the house, but there was never no footprints ever leaving the house. There was also a newspaper in the house that Andreas never remembered buying, and it looked as if someone was trying to pick at the lock on the shed. While all these strange things were going on, they had a maid at the time, and the maid was like, "Look, I gotta quit. This house is haunted." The family kept hearing noises in the attic, and the maid just like, "Look, I can't be here anymore. The noises in the attic, all the stuff going on around here, I can't do it." Although strange things continue to happen in the house, the family ends up hiring a new maid named Marie. What the group of family did not know was that those strange things would lead to their murder. On the evening of March 31st, 1922, the group of family was murdered. Victoria's son Joseph was killed in his crib, and Maria was killed in her bed. What's so crazy?
This next video was produced by Murders He Posted, and I can't help but wonder, isn't it baffling that in the age of advanced technology, so many of these cases remain unsolved? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section.
Hides the most disturbing secret. The girl in the back, smiling, is 4-year-old Heidi Jones. She is standing in front of a crime scene, near the outline of a body. This is where she found her mother, Loretta, murdered, just days before this picture was taken. On July 30th, 1970, the same night Heidi's mother was killed, 10-year-old Lori Kulo was attacked by a man just 3 blocks away. When Lori screamed out for help, the man ran away in the direction of Loretta's house. August 31st, 1 month after the murder, a man named Tom Eagley was arrested after his affair with Loretta became known to the police. He was the only suspect in the investigation. 3 months later, Tom Eagley walked free. For more than 40 years, the circumstances in which Loretta Jones was murdered would remain a mystery, unless her daughter Heidi could solve her case, not yet knowing that the key to finding the killer was inside this picture all along.
They noticed that Loretta's hand was in a pool of blood.
I couldn't even imagine what she's thinking about as she's laying there dying. My mom taking her last dying breath, leaving the clues.
I said, that doesn't happen except in the movies. She says it was right there, plain view. Loretta writing the name of the killer in blood.
The year is 1970. Loretta is a single unwed mother who thrives to provide for her daughter, 4-year-old Heidi. They live a happy life together in their house of Price, Utah.
It was just my mom and I. She made a ton of my own clothes. She made me dolls. She made some good memories with me. For me, she was the best mom.
July 30th, 1970. It's a warm summer night. Heidi kisses her mom goodnight before going to bed, not knowing that this will be the last time she'll see her. July 31st. At 11:40 a.m., police are called to 468 East 4th Street. They find Loretta Jones, 23, murdered by stabbing. They learn that her only daughter, 4-year-old Heidi, is at the neighbor's house, terrified and alone.
The sheriff kept calling my mother, and finally my dad comes home and he's very upset and in shock. First thing that my mother said is, "Where is Heidi?"
While police pursue their investigation, Heidi is put in the care of her grandparents. With the killer still on the loose, Heidi is worried that he might come for her next, and so are the cops. As it turns out, there had been another attack the night before. This time, the victim was only 10 years old. At around 9:30 p.m., little Lori Kula was attacked, only 3 blocks away from Loretta's house. Police are convinced the two crimes are connected, and the whole community of Price begins to worry about the safety of their own children.
A lot of the town was just scared that here's this guy that killed my sister, and he had grabbed a little girl that night as well. Everybody's wondering, where's this guy? What happened to him?
A few days later, Heidi finds herself at her mother's funeral, looking at her mom lying in the coffin.
She had on a blue dress. It had a super high collar, so that you couldn't see where her neck had been slit. But I remember looking at her in the coffin, and she looked just like Sleeping Beauty to me.
It was really hard to see Loretta, and there's her daughter, Heidi, just crying, realizing that her mother is gone now.
In the months that follow Loretta's murder, few arrests are made, and no suspect is ever convicted. 1971, 1 year after the murder of Heidi's mother, the case grows cold, with the killer still on the loose. As Heidi is growing up, one thought haunts her every night. She doesn't remember her mother screaming out for help or making any loud noises while she was being stabbed to death. Heidi understands there's only one explanation.
How somebody could not make a sound through any of that, not screaming out for help. She went through it because she didn't want anything to happen to me. How could I just let that go? My mom was my hero that night.
As she is living with her grandparents, Heidi feels she can't talk about her own mother anymore. She doesn't want to forget, but everyone tries to tell her to let it go.
I remember getting upset a lot, crying a lot. Anytime I tried to talk to my grandma about my mom, it would just make her cry. She said, "Why don't you just let it go?" And I said, "Because I can't let it go."
As the years pass, Heidi stays haunted by guilt that her mother's killer is still out there.
This is from one of my favorite TikTokers, and if you aren't already following her, make sure to do so. Her name is Charlie Born True Crime, and I'm eager for your input. Dive into the comment section and share your thoughts on this perplexing murder case. Your voices shape the discussion, and your perspectives matter.
Mysterious case absolutely does not sit right with me. Someone knows something and has not come forward. On the 12th of July 2015, 18-year-old Tiffany and her parents attended a graduation party in New Jersey. At around 9 p.m, one of Tiffany's friends spoke to her parents and claimed that they were really annoyed because Tiffany had used their debit card without permission. Tiffany initially denied this to her friend, but then did admit this to her mum Diane a little bit later. At this point, they were all outside Tiffany's house, and Diane went inside to find her husband. When she returned outside of the house, Tiffany had vanished. Now, they were able to see Tiffany on the deer cameras that they had outside the house. She appears to be walking down the driveway in her normal clothing and white headband. When they tried to find Tiffany, they actually made a terrifying discovery. Her phone was lying on the floor at the bottom of the driveway. Immediately, they knew something was wrong, as Tiffany never had her phone out of her sight. At 11:30 p.m, her family called the police. Little did they know, 27 minutes earlier, Tiffany had been hit by a train. Frustratingly, pretty much straight away, police presumed this death to be a self-unaliving. However, that just didn't seem to fit with the evidence presented. All of Tiffany's family and friends said how much of an upbeat person she was and that she was really happy at the time. She was making plans for the future, and the autopsy also showed that she had a clean toxicology report. Now, in the deer cam footage, she was fully clothed, but when she was found, she was just in her underwear with no shoes on. Upsettingly, 2 weeks after her death, Tiffany's mum actually found her missing trainers and headband more than a mile away from the tracks. Could someone have murdered Tiffany and then dumped her body on the train tracks to make it look like she did this herself? Tiffany's parents certainly think so. They definitely suspect some foul play was involved.
This next video is from Crimecast, and honestly, it's reassuring to see the internet sleuths diving into this case. Their dedication and resourcefulness offer real hope.
Gretchen is a musician from West Virginia, and she was last seen with an older man around 3 a.m. at the My Way Lounge in Parkersburg. She was officially reported missing on December 12th, and it was actually users on Facebook who made the connection as to where she was and who she was with that night. This is a photo of the My Way Lounge where she was last seen, and this is a photo of 55-year-old Preston Pierce. He's believed to be the man who left the bar with Gretchen, with police executing search warrants on his residence, car, electronics, and storage unit in the past few weeks. Preston has told police that he did give Gretchen a ride home from the bar, but dropped her off at an unspecified location and didn't see her after that. Authorities have said his story is inconsistent and that surveillance footage has led them to believe that he brought Gretchen to his residence that night. Preston is reportedly not cooperating with police, so right now they're asking everyone in the area to check their home surveillance footage between December 3rd and December 5th. If you see this vehicle or have any information, you can contact the number on the screen.
This next video is from People Are the Worst, and it reveals the resolution to a tragic murder. Yet amidst the closure, one haunting question remains. Why? Stay tuned for any updates. If a part 2 emerges, I'll be sure to share it with you.
At 2:30 a.m. on October 8, 1985, 18-year-old Amy Wheeler tried to walk into her dorm room at Northeast Mississippi Community College, but the door was locked. Assuming her roommate, 18-year-old Stacy Pinnell, was asleep, she knocked on her suite mate Stephanie Alexander's room so she could walk through the shared bathroom. Stephanie answered the door, and she and Amy walked through the bathroom into the room to find Stacy lying on her bed. Her left leg was up on the bed, her right foot was on the floor, and her underwear was pulled down to her knees. Upon further review, they realized that Stacy was heavy and cold, and there was blood all over the pillow. Amy immediately ran out to get help, but when the dorm mother got to the door from the hallway, it was locked again. When she finally got in, she saw Stacy in the same position, but this time her underwear was pulled down to the calf and it was only on one leg. Before, it was around her knees and on both legs. Police get there and pronounce Stacy dead. They found her wooden drill rifle on the floor with a towel on the barrel end, and the handle was full of blood. Given her position, they assumed she was sexually assaulted too. But when they got the autopsy back, they were shocked to learn that was not the case. She was just positioned to look like that. So investigators start questioning everyone, and they became very suspicious of her ex-fiance, Ben Cox, but there was nothing to place him there. All the blood found in the room was determined to be Stacy's, and there were no fingerprints on the weapon, so they couldn't arrest him. So Stacy's case went nowhere until almost a year later. One of the detectives attended a seminar in which a master interrogator talked about a new technique where he uses body language and eye movements to determine if someone's lying. He was from the Chicago area. His name was Stephen Rhodes, and he was called the human lie detector. This guy was good. Mississippi detectives needed something, so they asked Stephen to come down and speak to all the witnesses and especially the suspect. He agreed, and first up, he interviews Stacy's roommate, Amy. As he's talking to her, he says he senses no sign of deception. Next, he interviews the suite mate, Stephanie Alexander. Again, she's walking through her day. He said she's not lying, she's being completely honest. And then they get to the part where Amy wakes her up and they walk into the room to find Stacy. Stephen starts to sense something's wrong. He thinks she may be withholding some information, so he makes her walk through it again. And this time, she says when Amy wakes her up, she goes back into the room. Alarm bells are going off. So he starts asking the really tough questions, and before she can even get a word out, he says, "No, do not lie to me. I know you're about to lie." This goes on for 2 hours. Finally, Stephanie says, "Are you a mind reader?" Stephen says, "Yes, I am." And she responds, "Then you already know I did it." Chilling. Turns out he is not a mind reader. He could tell she was lying based on her eye movements. This is called neurolinguistics programming. Simply put, usually when you're recalling information or trying to think of something, your eyes shift one way. When you're getting creative and coming up with a story, your eyes shift the other way. Like I bet throughout this TikTok, I've been looking that way because I'm thinking of stuff, you know? So Steve started the interview with baseline questions. What's your name? What's your phone number? Where are you from? And he noticed with every answer Stephanie gave, her eyes shifted left. When he started asking about the murder, her eyes shifted right. So before she could even answer a question, he saw that her eyes shifted right, so he would stop her and say, "You're about to lie to me." This technique is fascinating, is it not? Stephanie later recants her confession, but in episode 56, we get into all the details of all the other suspects, Stephanie's motive, and her trial. Download now with the link in the profile, or search for People Are the Worst in your favorite podcast platform.
In this video created by the Sheesh podcast, we uncover the ending of a tragic murder of 2 young girls named Sheila and Catherine Lyon. Brace yourselves as the details of this heinous crime are nothing short of chilling.
Strange reason, no one really knew. Eventually, as most cases do, it gets new eyes and new people to look at the cases. So eventually a guy named Chris Hamrock starts to look at the case. in which he discovers evidence that no one has really looked into. It was a 6-page transcript from an 18-year-old named Lloyd Welch, who claimed he had seen the sisters abducted. So in 2013, the officer Hamrock tracked down Welch in Delaware, where he was actually just serving a 33-year-old sentence for assaulting a 10-year-old girl. As soon as Chris gets to jail, he goes up to Welch, and when Welch sees the officer, he says, "I know why you're here. I know you're here to ask about those 2 missing kids." Mind you, by this time, it's been 40 plus years. So the fact that as soon as the officer came in and he knew is just, to me is a little sketch. But anyway, in this 6-page transcript that the officer read, he asked him about it, and apparently it was a claim that he knew exactly who took the little girl. So as he's talking to the police, he's saying all these astonishing things that happened to them, and they don't know what to believe. Mind you, he's in prison, and I guess he's like a little crazy. He said that a man named Ray had kidnapped these girls along with an 11-year-old boy. Basically, Ray used the 11-year-old boy to get these girls to come with him. And apparently he said what Ray did to these girls is that he dismembered them and burned them so he would never get caught. So as detectives began investigating the entire Welch family, they eventually came across forensic evidence inside the basement of the house that looks like a huge wall, that the entire wall was painted with human blood. It's almost as if he drained the blood from their body and he painted the entire wall and then repainted back over it. So obviously they figured that someone had been slaughtered in that room. So that discovery alone allowed the cops to detain the Welch family, along with all the other lies he kept kind of running in circles, and they kept catching him on lies. Eventually they charged him with 2 felonies of murder, and he confessed and pled guilty in 2017 after 48 years of those girls being kidnapped and knowing nothing that happened to them.
All right, this is another video created and produced by Celestia Silva, and if you're not already following her, I highly recommend her stories. And in this video, I just want to ask the pressing question: why does it constantly take 4 decades to solve a crime? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section.
In 1982. He dropped by around 4:50 p.m. to take their daughter Sarah to a doctor's appointment, and he went into the main bedroom to find Kathleen in bed with an axe in her head. She had no defensive wounds and was likely killed while sleeping. But their 3-year-old daughter was in the house and possibly witnessed the whole thing. Jim was at work the whole day, and when the police questioned Sarah, she said she woke up in the house alone and spent the whole day alone. When they asked if she saw her mom, she said she walked into her parents' bedroom and saw, quote, "a bad man in mommy and daddy's bed." And when they asked what color he was in a reference to race, she said many colors. And they determined that the trauma to her mom's body was so bad that her own toddler didn't recognize her. Inside the house, several expensive items were sitting out, but nothing was taken, almost like a burglar was interrupted in the middle of the act. And an axe was sitting next to the broken back door in addition to the axe that was embedded in Kathleen's skull. And police learned that Jim was in bad standing at his job. Kodak had hired him based on him having a doctorate in economics, but Jim had actually never passed his dissertation. And after failing to present his diploma, Kodak was ready to fire him. Personally, I think he did a bad job staging the break-in and covering his tracks, but he wasn't arrested until 2022. Officers looked at the Brighton axe murder with fresh eyes and saw all the holes in Jim's story. They re-examined Kathleen's time of death, which was originally thought to be in the early morning hours after Jim had already left for work. But a second look showed it could have been as early as 1 a.m. They also interviewed Kathleen's friend, who said that there had been tension in the house because Jim was stressed at work. In their last conversation, which was the day before Kathleen died, Jim came home and Kathleen said, "Jim's home, I have to go," and sounded very stressed. And in 2022, the 70-year-old was convicted of second-degree murder. And their daughter Sarah never remembered any more information, and in court she actually stood up for her father and believes his innocence. And in May of this year, Jim Krausnick died in prison while appealing his sentence. And his conviction for the murder of his wife, Kathleen Krausnick, will actually be vacated under New York state law. Jim and his daughter believed that it was a burglar, but I don't know what burglar doesn't actually take anything from the house. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and follow for more true crime.
This latest video is from Drill I Am Shakespeare, and in this case, there's a flicker of hope. The perpetrator has come forward and admitted their guilt. Join us as we delve into this video for more closure.
Reported missing to Roswell police more than a decade ago. It's the middle of a Monday afternoon earlier this month. A very calm Peralta waits on the curb for officers to arrive.
I'm just tired of covering it up already. Try to cover it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm tired of living with my wife, sir.
Guilt?
Hell yeah.
Without being told, Peralta puts his hands behind his back to be cuffed. As he's walked to a patrol car, he thanks the officers.
Thank you guys for coming.
Did it happen at the house?
It did.
It did?
I was on meth really bad.
Okay.
And I killed him because he didn't give me no money. And I buried him in his house. It's right here. The next house.
This white one?
This white one here?
Yeah. I buried him in that slight place right here.
But what part of that room?
The left side.
The left side?
Yeah, if you pull the board up and dig him up.
It takes some time, but they eventually realize Peralta was telling the truth.
There's the, look, I think it's the boot. Oh, check that. Yep. Yep. Yep.
That boot has bones in it.
He was always good to me, and I took his life for no reason. And I don't have an excuse.
This next video is from True Crime File, and this video sheds light on a heartbreaking case of an unsolved murder involving a small, innocent little girl named Melissa Brannon. If you possess any information that may aid in the solving of this case, please don't hesitate to call 1-800-THE-LOST.
Welcome to another episode of the Crime Files. Today, we're going to delve into a heart-wrenching case that has haunted many for decades, the disappearance of Melissa Brannon. On December 3rd of 1989 in Lorton, Virginia, 5-year-old Melissa Brannon attended a holiday party with her mother, Tammy Brannon. Amidst the festive atmosphere, Melissa, dressed in a red skirt and a blue Sesame Street sweater, momentarily slipped from her mother's sight. Tragically, this brief moment was all it took for the unthinkable to happen. Someone abducted Melissa. The main suspect, Caleb Daniel Hughes, was a maintenance worker at the Woodside apartment complex where the Brennans lived. Hughes, who had attended the party, inexplicably left early, leading investigators to him. The case against him was challenging due to the lack of Melissa's whereabouts. However, Hughes was eventually charged and convicted, not for murder but for abduction, resulting in a 50-year sentence. Tammy Brannon, a struggling single mother and accountant, endured not only the loss of her daughter but also a cruel hoax promising Melissa's return. As for Hughes, his story took several turns, with sentence reductions and appeals. Eventually, he was released after serving 29 years, leaving many feeling a sense of injustice. Today, the whereabouts of Melissa Brannon remain a mystery. Her mother, having rebuilt her life, still holds on to hope, keeping her phone listed under her maiden name in case Melissa ever searches for her. The case remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of safety and the enduring pain of an unsolved tragedy. For those of you that are confused about the outcome of this case, Caleb never admitted to murdering Melissa. No body was ever found and no murder charges were filed either, kind of leaving this case up in the air, which is absolutely devastating for the family, as they have no idea what happened to Melissa. The following is just speculation, but investigators on the case do believe that Caleb took Melissa into his car, sexually assaulted her, and then most likely killed her. And now, Caleb just gets to live out his life. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think justice was served? Leave your comments down in the comment section, and remember, always keep seeking the truth.
Another video from one of my favorite TikTokers, Celestia Silva, and I wanted to end this video on a different note. Closure. This is the case of Ann Pham, a precious little baby girl whose life was unfairly taken from her. While her time was short and brief, the resolution of her murder can bring a sense of hope to us all.
5-year-old girl taken January 21st, 1982 while walking to school in Seaside near Monterey. 2 days later, her remains were found outside Fort Ord, which was a military base. Anne was the youngest of 10 children, and a sad detail is the fact that her family were Vietnamese refugees, meaning that they'd come to the US in hopes for a better life, not a tragedy. Because she was found right outside the military base, her case was taken on by the Army Crimes Division, who couldn't solve it. Her case was then turned over to the newly created Cold Case Division of Monterey County. Through DNA found on her body, they were able to make a match to a man who was serving at that Fort Ord military base. His name is Robert John Lanou, and he's now 70, but he was 29 at the time. If this is what he did in America, I don't even want to know what kind of messed up stuff he did while he was at war. In fact, he already had a criminal history. He served 20 years in prison for SA, and he was actually already in a Nevada prison for violating parole when he was matched to the Ann Pham case. The creepiest thing is that he lived a few houses over from Anne and her family. He probably watched her and waited for an opportunity to grab her. The police chief said it best when he said, "There's no way you don't see 10 children around a property every day, but he just saw prey."
From Law and Crime, this video exposes the chilling reality of capital murder, robbing a 16-year-old girl of her future. Join us as we unravel the heartbreaking tale of a life taken far too soon.
When her 16-year-old daughter Elizabeth didn't show up to the Christmas parade with her cheer squad. Medina told local reporters she knew something was wrong immediately and rushed home. Emergency crews were called to the apartment where the teen was found unresponsive. She was later pronounced dead on the scene. While police haven't revealed much information as far as a crime scene, if there are any signs of struggle, or how Elizabeth died, investigators are pursuing the case as a capital murder. Elizabeth's mom believes her daughter's death could be linked to a recent break-in that happened in their apartment complex. As of right now, police haven't released info about any potential suspects and no arrests have been made. If there are any new developments in the case, we'll make sure to keep you updated right here on Law and Crime.
Now for an update from Abby Lynn 715 on the Elizabeth Medina case. Stay tuned for the answers we've all been seeking.
Rafael Govea Romero, he was arrested in Schulenburg, and then he was transported back to the Jackson County Jail. The arrest was made just one day after the Edna Police Department released these images asking for the public's assistance in locating him. He's listed as an undocumented male, and it hasn't been released yet whether he and Liz knew each other or not, but Liz's mom, Jacqueline, said that she had never seen him before. Now, if you don't know this case, on Tuesday, December 5th, her mom left for work around 7 in the morning. She was up and getting ready for school. She didn't end up going, but nobody thought it was weird because she had actually been sick the day before and didn't go to school that day. But later on in the evening, she was supposed to go to this parade and she never showed up for it. Nobody could get a hold of her. So her mom ended up going to the apartment complex where they lived. And then she found her deceased in the bathtub. She was only 16 years old. And as you can see, she's a beautiful girl. She wanted to be a nurse someday. She had her whole life ahead of her. He's being charged with capital murder, but even after he's convicted, to find your daughter that way, nothing's ever gonna make this better for that mom.
The internet is a strange and wonderful place, isn't it? It's like a treasure trove of information just waiting to be discovered. But with that comes a darker side, a side filled with mysteries and unsolved questions. It's a daunting task, but one that we can tackle together if we have unwavering determination. Stay tuned to watch the next compilations of solved and unsolved mysteries, and let us know in the comment section, what do you prefer, solved or unsolved crimes? Thank you so much for watching till the very end, and I'll see you in the next one.